Hey, what's up guys? Jeremy here, Sunday, April 3rd, 2011. What I'm going to talk to you today is a possible scenario over the next 15 years for a long-term project and plan to implement new programs, infrastructure, and facilities to benefit the communities of Windsor and Essex County. Just to give you a little bit about myself, I was born and raised in Windsor, Ontario. Grew up, went to Brennan and Assumption. And as it relates to this project, and I apologize, this is an unedited or non-scripted little video. I had competed for the Windsor Aquatic Club. I started swimming late in 1992, but our program, the club, had a lot of success. Without using names, as some of you already know the people, but since I don't have their consent, most of our coaches went on. One of our original coaches is now coaching a successful university program out at UBC. He's actually generating almost the entire national team right now that's going to the Worlds in Shanghai. And our coaches after that have had tremendous success as well, moving on to the provincial level running governing bodies. And our athletes mark success at the provincial, national, international level, Commonwealth Games, Olympic Games, NCAA championships, OUA and CIS championships as well. So our city has a tremendous support background in the sport of swimming, and although that's only one of the aquatic sports, here we'll look at a scenario as mentioned again. Not saying this is the right way, but there might be some elements for consideration here that depending on how things work out over the next few months, and if some committees are formed, maybe we can look at exploring together. And for my fellow swimmers, some of you guys that I swam with or swam against that are from the club or in high school, hopefully this gives you some thought, pardon me, and hopefully we can work together on that project. Alright, so I apologize again if this is a little bit out of place. It's just a blank piece of paper. Again, there's no script here, but again, I mentioned a 15-year program, so we're looking at pretty much 2011 to let's see here, 2026, 15, 2021. Actually, you know what? This might take a little bit longer, but we'll just say a 15-year program minimum starting, I want to say 2011, but we'll see when the action plans go ahead, so we'll just say starting in 2012. So right now, what we're looking at, obviously the city's looking at introducing a number of different facilities to benefit the community. And in the past, we had the big three. All right, and that was really what supported the whole city and everything that's like the spin-offs from the big three. Unfortunately, with the economic recession, that's no longer there. All right, so now we have a city that has experienced the most economic recession throughout the nation, and we always hear that our community is, the last you don't hear about us. It's pretty much Canada ends at London, Ontario, which that's just something that we hear through the grapevine. Not saying that it is, but we are definitely the feet of the country. We're the people in the community that was getting our country from point A to point B, especially in the automotive industry, obviously. So right now, the big three's out, and we have a whole community, and what we need to do to turn ourselves around is rebrand ourselves into an area where we can draw economic impact, where we have businesses flourishing, and where we're definitely helping out our residents. Nearly 400,000 in the local community and surrounding municipalities in the county. So one of the things that we'll look at is the pool. All right, now, just for record's sake, as it comes to the pool, right now in the past couple of years we built I don't want to use the name, a facility that's in the area. It's a multi-purpose arena facility, and just to have it out there, although this is not the way that we'll go, just my 2 cents that it would have been good to have that arena, and it has one major pad and a few smaller pads, to have that arena hooked on to the 50-meter pool. And the reason for that is you have your air exchange system, the geothermal stuff. So the pool cools the arena heats the pool, and that's just engineering, where it saves you some costs. But now, due to the fact that we're looking to rejuvenate the downtown core, and you guys probably all know already about the anchor, we're looking at putting the pool downtown, well, in a specific location, which you guys are probably already aware of. With that being said, let's just look at the fundraising structure for this pool. Right now, to build it, I'm guesstimating that we'll need at least $50 million. And it looks ridiculous, but it can be done. How are we going to do that? 5 years at $10 million a year. Not $10, 10 million a year. All right. And my writing's not that good, and I type a lot, so I apologize for that as well. But what we can do is, once the task force is in place to build this structure, we commit to getting a fundraising committee who's results driven, and just will go attack that 10 million a year and get that 50 million. What we'll look at here is that you have your fundraising committee. All right, there's obviously one person to be a project manager, or we'll just say D for director. And then under that, we have a number of committees. All right, and although I won't put them all here, we have one for government grants. I'll just put GG. One for corporate sponsorship. And then we break this out, and you can go on and on into different categories. All right, and the categories from lawyers, dentists, doctors, accountants, and you just go on and on. Service clubs, ethnic groups, you can go on and on. All right, so from here, each of these areas would be appointed by a category manager who would oversee going after each of these areas. All right, now the heavy end is here in the government grants, corporate sponsorship. That's where we have to bring in the big dollars. That's where we go to the province and also the government and possibly Sport Canada. In this as well, we have to lobby for support through our different communities, the Aquatic Club moving up to the provincial level and then national level, and going from there. But again, you have one director to manage a number of category managers. All right, and all this here is just getting all your funds in the local community. Obviously, it might be a little bit harder to generate $10,000. I know it sounds small from ethnic clubs compared to maybe doctors, but it's definitely, we had program planned how much money we'd need. All right, so with that being said, fundraising, let's look at some of the other things that we definitely need. All right, so in our 15-year plan, if we divide it by 5 years, all right, so 5 years, 5 years, 5 years. All right, the first part is building. Second part, development. And then hosting. Okay, now when we build this pool, all right, this is one project only, but when we build this pool, obviously we have to build it properly, and we have to build it to specifications by FINA, Fédération Internationale de Natation. And if you want more information, please visit fina.org. When we build this pool, it has to meet technical standards to host major events. All right, because at the end of the day, what are we doing with this pool? We're going to be serving our community, and right now it's a little bit hard because I'm actually focusing the camera into here, and I'm actually looking through the camera to right, so I'm just writing that down quickly. Serving our community, and by this I mean right away quality of life. All right, and that's for all of our residents, and that this here is managed through Parks and Rec. The second part is sport development. All right, so under sport development, we have all of our levels of swimming, from the club level, high school level, all the way up, and hopefully again we'll introduce the university swimming program at some point, perhaps down the road. But sport development and this is, I'm putting an acronym here, helping competitors, athletes in different sports, because we're not just looking at swimming, but we're going to look at reintroducing water polo, synchronized swimming, diving, and a few other aquatic sports, and also help out with other related sports such as triathlons or the triathlete community. So what we're looking at is LTAD, or LTAD, which is long-term athlete development. And basically what this means is from the early ages of being a participant to full growth. So you can use the analogy playground to podium. We need to get people from here to here, and that's my little Olympic medal, all right, my little Olympic symbol. So we need to get people up the echelon, up the stages, to develop all the way into being Olympic athletes. So along with sport development and serving the community is sport tourism. So what is sport tourism? Basically, when events are being hosted in the community, they bring in economic impact. Right? Every event that comes into a community, depending on the size of the event, depending on the number of competitors, depending on the participants, if it's professional or amateur, has an economic impact that comes into the city. All right, so you come into the city and then it spreads out. Okay, so it goes into accommodation. So I'll put hotels, H for hotels. Goes into businesses such as restaurants. It goes into other businesses from gas to entertainment. And this creates stimulus funding, which improves our economy, creates jobs, and also strengthens our volunteer and community base and infrastructure to host major events. So your community building. All right, so going back into the 5-year plan. The first 5 years is building. Okay, so what I'm going to do right now is I'm actually going to take this sheet here and put this aside. We talked about building a sports facility, pardon me, but there's some other things that we have to do as well. In the recent years, we've built a number of venues here in the community, from an amazing stadium to arena facilities and now a pool. All right. So with that being said, we need a bigger vision of how we're going to engage the community. And although once you have a venue, the saying is based on the field of dreams. If you build it, they will come. There's actually more you have to do than just quite simply building a facility. So one scenario, what we're going to look at here, all right, is introducing a different department or subsector of Parks and Rec between Parks and Rec and the tourism, which will enhance the community involvement and go out and recruit and solicit different events to come to our community. So right now we have from the top, from CAO, the Chow, all the way down, we have Parks and Rec, all right? And although it's Parks and Rec, there's actually 2 divisions. So right now with Parks and Rec, I'll just put P and R, there's a number of different areas for it. There's the director and a number of managers, and then everything from aquatics, community services, special needs services, etc. Over here, I apologize. We used to have the Convention and Visitors Bureau, the CVB. Now that changed over the past couple years, but what we didn't have, it was something in between. All right. So between Parks and Rec and the CVB, which is now a tourism bureau, the responsibility of this part here was to go out and attract events or just help with hosting different events, conferences, and bringing in tourism, which increases our community. Over here, Parks and Rec, we're responsible for so many different things, and I only have so many wonderful things to say about these people here because over the years that we've hosted events, I could list it off from Super Bowl, Pan Am Juniors to be specific. Pardon me. The city people have always come in to bail out, honestly bail out, and help with the different events. So kudos to you guys. I know who you are. You already know who I am and stuff. So we'll go down from there. Now with Parks and Rec, we have a new potential area here, and it doesn't say it has to be named this way, but it could be like sports, culture, or it can just be sports and culture. All right. So this area here would oversee a number of different things. All right, and what the goal is of this sports and culture department, unless it falls right under Parks and Rec, is to work between tourism and P&R and go out, attract new events to come to the city, build our community, and also develop a voice in our community by tying organizations together. Now, under sports and culture, what we can do is we can have one area of sports and one area of culture. All right. So under sports, what you have here, this here could be either run, if it became its own department, by a director, or if we keep under Parks and Rec, we just appoint another manager of sports and culture, and it could even be arts, but we'll just leave a sports and culture as mentioned. So under the manager, we'd have one coordinator, and actually perhaps a coordinator of community sports services. We slide that person over from Parks and Rec here, and also a sport tourism coordinator. Again, these can be modified to host different areas here. But under this wing we have sports, under this wing we have culture. All right. Now, one thing we don't have in this area yet, but we should have someday, is a sport council and a sport tourism initiative. Now, a few years ago, and I was actually part of this, the previously CVB, we went out and we started what's called the Windsor-Essex Sport Tourism Alliance, WESTA. Now, we need to revisit that program and do a critical analysis on what could have been improved, and then adjust that program and definitely find a way to implement that in here. All right, so with that sport tourism initiative, that person would go out, it could be the manager, work on bid submissions to host different events, acquire those bids, that would come into here. And from there, your sport tourism services coordinator could work with the community on hosting those different events. But right now we're going to look at sport council. Okay. So again, this is just very quick and very rough sketches. Right now, amateur sports in our community is run by a minor sports organization or governing body. Soccer has it, baseball has it, hockey has it. Though it's a little bit difficult, we need to find a way to get the executive director or administrative officer that's responsible for each of these organizations to sit on a volunteer board. We could put soccer, baseball, hockey, etc. Even like skating, gymnastics, you go on, to sit on a sport council. All right, they become the community voice on how sports should develop, on what the needs are of the community, and they would be the community voice, which would go up the ladder here, up to Parks and Rec, and up to the right to the top. So from there, they would work together and again determine what is best for the community, become the community voice, and we're tying the community together. All right, so that's one thing from there. And again, the coordinator could be the direct lifeline to the manager or the director, who then reports up here. With that being said, when it comes to different events, if we look at hosting a specific event, say if it's a baseball national championships, it could be a specific event. That sport tourism services coordinator would work with the baseball administrative officer or executive director, and then from there we look at hosting different events. Now, different events, from provincial national championships to international competitions, have a bid package, and most of those bid packages can be found on their websites. So with that, the manager or the sport tourism services coordinator, or working together in collaboration, would have to identify what are events or what are the events that we could host in the area. From there, we'd work with those governing bodies and identify if there's an opportunity to host those events, and if we have the infrastructure to host it. Infrastructure, I mean by facilities, the technical requirements, and also the infrastructure in the actual governing body to host those events. From there, the Sport Council also would liaise on sport tourism and then help build us into a vibrant community. On the other side of the coin, and I'm not going to go into too detail about this, but similar to this model here, we have culture. So we're working with the community, the arts, and we're tying everyone together, again, into one community voice going up the chain and up to there on what is the best form of development for the arts and culture community. Right now we have a number of venues that eventually need refreshing. Also we can look at hosting different events and also working with the community to develop our festival package, which would eventually come up in here and go into community services. And then just again with this, you're tying this all together, so you're uniting people, you're having a community voice, you're fostering long-term development, you're improving the volunteer infrastructure, and also we're just basically operating a little bit more efficiently. Again, not saying this is the way that it has to be, but definitely one option that could be considered. Right there, the manager of sports culture or sports culture and arts would work with the tourism bureau towards soliciting events, and then also with Parks and Rec. All right, so on this side we're looking at quality of life for our residents. This side we're looking at bringing in events, and this is the organization in between that ties it all together. And I apologize, not organization, it could be a department or just a separate unit of Parks and Rec. So it's basically, where is this going to be housed? What is it going to cost us to house that? And basically, we're looking at least 3 different staff members here. If it's a manager, we're looking at somewhere between $65,000 and $75,000 per year plus benefits. And 2 coordinators, probably, we'll just say depending on their background, $45,000 to $55,000. Again, we could slide over someone from here, from community sports, put them onto this area, and then go from there. Now down the road, and again, these people here are fantastic, but down the road, what we can look at doing is possibly uniting Parks and Rec into one area, so it just becomes P&R. Now, other communities use this formula, not saying it's the best, every community has its own needs, but depending on how things develop in the years to come, we can look at uniting that, having one director, 4 managers, and your different coordinators from here. So when we look at building, right, we're looking at building all these venues, but we actually need to build the infrastructure here, because what we're looking, when we're building these venues, we're improving our community environment and definitely enhancing quality of life for individuals in our community. We definitely need to put the infrastructure in place so that we can rebrand ourselves into an amateur sport community of excellence. So let's keep looking at building, and we'll look at the pool. So many different ways to do it. Not saying you have to build it all at once, as long as you build it in certain concessions that enable long-term growth and development. So what we need right away is your 50-meter pool. And again, you can go on FINA. We can go on FINA.org, and you can see all the technical requirements towards everything from lane width to gutter depth to bulkhead to everything that has to be in this, even the lane rope colors that go into here. But we need a 50-meter tank. Has to be at least 10 lanes, all right? And we can't shrimp ourselves on this, because someday when we get back to the plan here of hosting, which we'll talk about, we need to look above and beyond in long-term vision. Now, right now, if we had a 50-meter pool and if we had sport development in place, then post 2020 we could host a Commonwealth Games. That's probably the biggest event that the community can host. Under that, we can look at other events like the North American Indigenous Games, and then obviously a number of national championships, provincial championships for the respective aquatic sports. So you have your 10-lane 50-meter pool, which meets FINA requirements, and I'm going to put that down here so you know where to go find it. And I already know, some of you guys already know where to go find that, but we have that tank from there, and let's just say that here's your starting block area. So this is where the swimmers start. Now, what we need here is there has to be obviously enough clearance, which is getting into engineering, but we'd have a soundproof wall, and we actually have another room. And in this room we have, believe it or not, another pool, all right? And this becomes your warm-up pool, and the minimum requirements, 8 8 lanes, 25 meters. So 8 lanes times 25 meters. And over here, you have 10 lanes times 50 meters. Right? So when we host competitions down the road, you need the soundproof room so that swimmers have an opportunity to go warm up and cool down for their events. And also during training, during programming through Parks and Rec, when we program this, the competitive clubs, we can share different venues. So the season, obviously, for those who don't know, is actually broken up into a short course and long course season, which pretty much goes September to end of March, a short course season, and then after that, April through the end of August, long course season. Short course season means that you're competing at 25 meters, which is actually half the lane of this pool, half the length of this pool, pardon me. So right now, you have a movable bulkhead, and this is actually, although this is 50 meters, this is actually a little bit longer because the bulkhead's a little bit longer. But during short course season, you move the bulkhead here, so now you have two 25-meter pools. So during short course season, obviously we look at hosting the different clubs to train in the morning, and then we can also have the high schools training, and even this could be another pool for training, but that's during the morning, afternoon, and evening. And then during the day, we program it so we have our aquatic items from developing swimmers, just general swimming, and obviously all the way up to our seniors, aquafit, and different programs. Okay, going back to this room here, one of the things we also need to look at, along with technical specifications, is that the fact that we do want to have the ability to host major events. And although I'm talking about Commonwealth Games, not saying that it has to be in place right away, but what we can look at doing is having the pool, the major part of the pool, actually sunk into the ground. So if this is surface level, then basically, that's a horrible drawing. But from there, your pool's down here, and you have your different levels, and then your cover. All right, so we're actually building that way. From there, the ground floor is obviously your pool, 25-meter pool, and then around that we have our deck, and this is where the swimmers are, the teams. We can have telescopic or retractable seating at the ground level, and then at the second level, we look at seating for spectators. Ideally, it would be beautiful to have seats, like individual seats, color-coded, would be fantastic. That could be on the wish list for down the road. Right now we can just look at steps where people can sit, and then as we develop money over time, we can integrate a plan to get in seating. But what we can look at doing is 1,500 seating aside. So we have 1,500 here, 1,500 here. So that's your second level, and that can be actually accessed through the third level. So on the third level, what we can look at here, this is where people actually come in, they enter the venue. Up here we have our, obviously, information desk. You can have your swim shop, commercial places here that can be rented out, even possibly at, like, for example, a Tim Hortons. And then here's your standing area, but also we need solutions in place for hosting events. So obviously this is where you have your media, your cameras on both sides. So this would come around on both sides. Now with the pool, depending on the how it's selected here, what we can do is we can look at the deep end, and we can look at having your diving, your platform here. Actually I drew it a little bit too big. Your platform here and your springboards on either ends, and then that's for the sport of diving. Obviously this would be a deep end here if we went with that method, but all the way throughout we can have a minimum of a 10-meter depth. So we have the flow of water going this way, and then your deep end is here for your diving. Or we can program it in, and down the road have a diving tank here. Alright, so that would extend, again, it depends on the plan, we extend the seating here for our diving events, and then have that televised. And then over here, what you have is your warm-up area for your divers to warm down, cool up, to sit in the spa, and then you have your equipment room. Now this is very sloppy. Obviously I'm like talking and shooting a camera here, a little digital camera. But under one side of the seating, what you can do is you have your washrooms on one side, your changing rooms, and on the other side you have different facilities. All right, and you cannot see it under the seating. So let's look at what are the different facilities.